Everyone loves a good supernatural mystery. Just think back to those afternoons watching Scooby-Doo, or the classic suspense of the X-Files that defined an era. We have a natural fascination with the unknown, and with stories where nothing is quite what it seems. But in 2012, Disney decided to throw the rulebook out the window and created something that changed the game: Gravity Falls. At first glance, the premise seems harmless enough. Two siblings, Dipper and Mabel, are sent to spend the summer with their shady great uncle in a tiny town in the middle of nowhere. But anyone who's seen it knows there's a lot more beneath the surface. Gravity Falls is basically a wild mix of Twin Peaks and The Simpsons. The show hides encrypted codes, secret societies, and a villain who's literally a demonic triangle with psychopathic tendencies. It's not just a kid's cartoon, it's a masterclass in screenwriting that treats its audience with intelligence, blending sharp humor with that bittersweet melancholy of growing up and saying goodbye to summer. So today, we're diving back into every page of that journal to understand why this is, without a doubt, one of the greatest animated series ever made. We meet Dipper and Mabel, twins shipped off to spend the summer with their great-uncle Stan in the bizarre town of Gravity Falls. The place feels slower than a slow-motion movie, and to make matters worse, they're basically forced labor at the Mystery Shack, their uncle's local tourist trap. But the boredom ends when Dipper, pulling a full Indiana Jones in the woods, finds a fake metal tree and discovers a secret journal filled with bizarre entries about the town's mysteries.
What the? What is all this?
Meanwhile, Mabel lands a boyfriend named Norman. The guy acts so weird that Dipper is convinced he's a zombie, straight out of The Walking Dead. He tries to investigate with Seuss's help, but the truth is even crazier. Norman isn't the undead. He's a bunch of gnomes stacked inside a coat. They kidnap Mabel because their leader, Jeff, wants to force her to be their gnome queen. Dipper borrows Wendy's golf cart, arms himself with a shovel, and heads for the rescue. The chase gets insane when the gnomes combine to form a giant monster, looking like a garden gnome version of a Megazord. They corner the twins at the shack, but Mabel has a plan. She fakes accepting the marriage proposal just to yank Jeff with a leaf blower. She sends the gnome flying, and the monster falls apart. After the victory, and an awkward sibling hug, Grunkle Stan lets the kids pick out some gifts. Dipper chooses his classic blue pine tree hat, and Mabel grabs a grappling hook, which we already know is going to cause trouble. At the end, while the twins play, we see Stan opening a secret passageway behind a vending machine, proving he's hiding way more than just cheap soda. At the Mystery Shack, morning chaos involves syrup drinking competitions and consumerist dreams. Dipper discovers a monster photo contest with a $1,000 prize, while Mabel is already planning to spend her share on a giant human-sized hamster ball. Their get-rich-quick plan is interrupted by Grunkle Stan, who decides to force a family bonding day. He kidnaps the kids and drives blindfolded to the lake in a performance worthy of Mad Max Fury Road, only with a beat-up old sedan. Once there, Stan just wants to fish, but the mood shifts when Old Man McGucket, the local kook, shows up screaming about a sea monster called the Gobblewonker. No one believes him, but Dipper sees a shot at the prize money. The twins ditch Stan without mercy and join Suze on the boat SS Cool Dude for an aquatic hunt. The expedition is a mess. Dipper tries to be the serious captain, but they lose most of the cameras and Suze keeps eating fish food. When the monster finally appears, things get real, leading to a tense chase toward a waterfall. They manage to trap the creature in a cave, but Dipper notices sparks flying off the beast. In true Scooby-Doo fashion, they discover the monster was a robot controlled by McGucket, who built the machine just to get his family's attention.
Where's the bellows and the... Huh? Oh, banjo polish! You?
Feeling guilty, Dipper and Mabel head back to spend the day fishing with Grunkle Stan. But the episode has one last sting. At the very end, we see the real Gobblewonker swimming at the bottom of the lake, swallowing the last camera, proving that in this town, even the fake legends turn out to be real. Suze finds a secret room in the Mystery Shack full of old wax statues, and Grunkle Stan sees another chance for easy money. Since the wax Abraham Lincoln melted, Mabel carves a perfect replica of Stan himself for the grand reopening, which obviously is just another scam to rob tourists by promising non-existent pizza, but crime pays, with more crime. Wax Stan is found decapitated. Since the local cops, Sheriff Blubbs, and Deputy Durland are more useless than a traffic guard in GTA, Dipper and Mabel flip into CSI mode, investigating footprints and a suspicious axe. They interrogate dangerous folks at a biker bar and uncover the humiliating alibi of local reporter Toby Determined, who was on a date with a cardboard cutout of a news anchor. At the doll's funeral, the plot twist hits. The statues come to life, It's a horror version of Toy Story meets House of Wax. Led by an evil wax Sherlock Holmes, the statues wanted to kill the real Stan for locking them away, but they missed their target in the dark. An insane battle breaks out in the living room, with Dipper luring Sherlock into the sun to melt him and Mabel tossing the rest of the gang into the fireplace. The mystery is solved, except for the head of Wax Larry King, which survived in the vents and now lives as Mabel's creepy fashion consultant. Dipper and Mabel decide to check out the competition and visit the Tent of Telepathy owned by Lil Gideon, Stan's biggest business rival. The kid looks like a bizarre mix of Honey Boo Boo and a pint-sized televangelist with a pompadour bigger than his head. Dipper calls fraud immediately, but the ever-optimistic Mabel thinks the kid is adorable. Gideon wastes no time and asks her out. She agrees out of pure innocence, thinking they're just being friends, but the kid creates a super-forced, possessive, romantic atmosphere.
How about soulmate?
Well, you can't say no to that.
The situation turns into a nightmare. Expensive dinners, public pressure for them to be together, and even Stan trying to profit from a family merger. Mabel gets so desperate, she locks herself inside her own clothes, inaugurating Sweater Town. Dipper decides to play the hero and break up with Gideon for his sister, but he discovers that little Gideon is actually dangerous. The tiny villain uses a mystical amulet for telekinesis, luring Dipper to a factory and tossing him around like a diaper-wearing Magneto. Mabel shows up at the 11th hour, realizes Dipper is being magically pummeled, and finally dumps Gideon in person. She rips the amulet off him, saves her brother from a fatal fall, and smashes the gem, stripping the pompadour-clad villain of his powers. Gideon vows revenge, and Stan uses the chaos to steal a clown painting. But the real shock comes at the end. Alone in his room, Gideon reveals he possesses journal number 2. Dipper isn't the only one with a guide to the town's mysteries. Stan decides to go full slave driver and orders the gang to clean the bathroom, but he quickly bails to watch TV. Wendy, being the employee of the month she isn't, takes Dipper and Mabel to the roof to chill. That's when it hits Dipper. He has a massive crush on the redhead. The teen romance vibes are interrupted when Wendy's friends show up. To fit in and secure his spot with the cool kids, Dipper flat out lies, saying he and Mabel are already 13. The group heads out in a beat-up van to Dusk to Dawn, an abandoned convenience store where a murder supposedly took place. The place is locked, and after being mocked by Robbie, the resident emo rival and graffiti artist, Dipper channels his inner Ethan Hunt from Mission Impossible, crawls through the vents, and opens the door, earning serious street cred. Inside, the party starts. Mabel finds Smile Dip, a candy band in America, and consumes the entire horde, entering a hallucinogenic trip worthy of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, seeing rainbows and dolphins. Meanwhile, Dipper tries to keep up the team facade, but the store comes to life. Ghost starts snatching Wendy's friends, turning them into store items like hot dogs and video game characters. Dipper realizes the ghosts, an elderly couple named Ma and Pa, hate unruly teenagers. The boy admits he's only 12 to save himself. The ghosts agree to release his friends, but for a price. Dipper has to wear a ridiculous costume and perform the Lammy Lamby dance. He endures the monumental embarrassment. The old ghosts love the show, and everyone is freed.
Greet your mammy, mammy, mammy. Hi there, hi there. So march, march, march around. Yes, more.
On the way out, Wendy proves she's a real one and tells the others Dipper saved everyone in a fight, keeping the kids' dignity intact. The day's humiliation happens at Greasy's diner, where Stan is being a cheapskate as usual. Dipper, trying to prove he's a grown man and not a kid who sings bubblegum pop in the shower, decides to tackle a strength tester machine. The result? The machine basically calls him a wimp. To make things worse, Manly, a lumberjack who looks like he stepped out of an Old Spice commercial, shows up and breaks the toy with his pinky. Frustrated and with his masculinity bruised, Dipper flees to the woods to work out with dry branches, Rocky Balboa style, on a budget. That's where he runs into the Minotaurs, a bizarre mix of minotaurs and gym bros who speak in slang and act like they're in an American Pie fraternity. Their leader, Kutzpar, decides to train the boy in the art of being an alpha male, which involves smashing things and repressing feelings. Meanwhile, Mabel plays Cupid and tries to set Stan up on a date with Lazy Susan, the waitress with a permanent wink. It's like the movie Hitch, but with zero charm and peak secondhand embarrassment. Dipper's final test is to bring back the head of the multi-bear, a creature that looks like an Elden Ring boss. But when it comes down to it, the bear asks for one last wish, to hear his favorite song. And guess what? It's Disco Girl, the same embarrassing hit Dipper loves. Realizing the monster is a nice guy and the Manitors are just idiotic bullies, Dipper spares the bear and rejects the bro squad. Back at the diner, Stan admits that having the guts to stand up to the pack is the manliest thing there is. The day ends with Dipper finding his first chest chest hair, which Mabel brutally plucks out, and Stan, realizing too late that lazy Susan is the classic cat lady, Grunkle Stan, ever focused on cutthroat capitalism, turns the shack into a club to squeeze cash out of the locals. During the prep, Dipper and Mabel discover an old copier in the office, but it's no ordinary Xerox. The machine creates living clones of whoever gets copied. The problem is Dipper is desperate to dance with Wendy, but Stan forces him to man the ticket booth. The genius solution? He prints a clone of himself, who names himself Tyrone.
I will call you number 2.
Definitely not.
You know a name I've always wanted? Tyrone?
Now, with a backup at work, the original Dipper can focus on Mission Impossible, getting Wendy away from Robbie. Meanwhile, Mabel enters a cold war of popularity. She meets Pacifica Northwest, basically the Regina George of Mean Girls, only richer and more spoiled. To face off against the blonde, Mabel forms a squad with Candy and Grenda, 2 girls who look like they were cast in Napoleon Dynamite. Things go south for Dipper when he decides one clone isn't enough. He creates an army of Dippers to engineer the perfect scenario with Wendy, including a glitched out crumpled paper clone, and as happens in 100% of sci-fi movies, the clones revolt. They decide the original Dipper is too soft and lock him in a closet so one of the clones can take his place. Dipper escapes, and a general brawl breaks out. Luckily, the clones dissolve when they hit water, like the witch from The Wizard of Oz. He melts the competition using soda, leaving only Tyrone. In the end, Pacifica buys the votes and wins the party crown, but Mabel keeps her true friends. As for Dipper, he watches Tyrone dissolve and realizes that over-planning romance is a waste of time. It's Pioneer Day in Gravity Falls, the kind of boring civic event that makes a history class look like a Travis Scott concert. Pacifica Northwest takes the stage to brag about her great-great-grandfather, the supposed founder of the town, and uses the chance to humiliate Mabel. The blonde says being silly is a flaw, causing Mabel to have an identity crisis and decide to become a serious person, basically killing all the joy inside her. Meanwhile, Dipper channels Nicolas Cage in National Treasure. He finds out in the journal that the town's founder is a fraud and decides to prove it. Grunkle Stan isn't so lucky. He tries to flee the festivities, pisses off the cops, and ends up in medieval stocks in the town square, getting pelted with tomatoes, even by Lil Gideon, who shows up just to enjoy the suffering. The twins' investigation leads to a heist at the museum, which is just them entering with free passes, and then to a cemetery. There, they discover a secret passage leading to the true secret of Gravity Falls. Quentin Tremblay, the 8th-and-a-half president of the USA. The guy didn't die. He froze himself in a giant block of peanut brittle.
The 8th-and-a-half president of the United States.
President? 8.5.
Whoa! Is that like Amber or something?
The town police, Blubs and Durland, finally do their jobs and arrest the kids, putting them on a train straight to DC. But Mabel, sad and hungry, eats the candy and thaws the crazy president. Using his questionable presidential authority, Tremblay lets everyone off the hook. In the end, Mabel accepts that being silly is her superpower, and Dipper rubs the truth in Pacifica's face, proving that revenge is a dish best served cold, or frozen in peanuts. Oh, and they use a presidential key to free Stan, who had already turned into a human tomato sauce. Grunkle Stan has turned the yard into a fair that looks about as safe as a roller coaster made of popsicle sticks. His goal is to profit from rigged games, but Dipper's goal is different: impress Wendy. Everything is going great until he tries to be the hero by winning her a stuffed animal and accidentally hits her in the eye with a ball. To make the humiliation worse, Robbie appears out of nowhere with ice cream and steals the moment. It's every friend-zone teen's nightmare, but luck, or science fiction, smiles on Dipper. He bumps into a time traveler sweating bullets trying to fix anomalies at the fair. Dipper and Mabel steal the guy's measuring tape, which is actually a time machine, and decide to play Groundhog Day. Dipper rewinds the clock several times to try and fix the throw, failing miserably until he creates a complex mathematical plan with Mabel's help. Finally, the strategy works. Dipper avoids the accident, humiliates Robbie, and gets Wendy's attention. It seems like the happy ending of a team movie, but the butterfly effect is cruel. In this new perfect timeline for Dipper, Mabel missed the window to win Waddles, a pig she swears is her soulmate. The pig ended up in Pacifica's hands, and Mabel enters a spiral of sadness so deep it makes a CW drama look like a comedy. Dipper tries to prove she'll get over it by traveling to the future, but discovers his sister will live in misery without the pig. After a chaotic tour involving the Oregon Trail game and an apocalyptic future ruled by a giant baby, Dipper makes the hard call. He sacrifices his romance for his sister's happiness. They reset the timeline. Wendy gets hit again and leaves with Robbie, but Mabel gets Waddles back.
Ow, my eye!
Hey, Wendy, are you okay?
Dipper! Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you!
Blendon ends up arrested by the Time Police, Agents Lolf and Dungren, but who cares? Mabel has her pig, and Stan finally falls into the dunk tank thanks to a futuristic laser. The vibe at the arcade is tense. Dipper tries to impress Wendy at a game that's basically Street Fighter, but Robbie shows up to ruin the mood and remind everyone why he's the worst emo in history. The rivalry escalates fast, and Dipper accidentally breaks Robbie's phone. The result? A challenge for a real-life fight at the park. Dipper, knowing he has the physical build of a wet noodle, tries to hide at the arcade and stumbles upon a secret code in a game. By typing the cheat code, he brings Rumble Mix Skirmish to life, a roided-out 8-bit fighter who looks like he stepped out of an SNES cartridge. Dipper seizes the opportunity and tells the pixelated fighter that Robbie killed his father. Boom. He now has a digital bodyguard thirsty for vengeance. Meanwhile, in a subplot that defies all workplace safety, Mabel decides to cure Grunkle Stan's fear of heights by taking him to the top of the town's water tower, ignoring every protocol of common sense. Things spiral out of control when Rumble takes the fight too seriously and literally tries to delete Robbie from existence. Dipper realizes he went too far and, in a burst of courage or stupidity, jumps in to save his rival. The fighter turns the tables on his master and unleashes a combo with a name longer than the credits of Lord of the Rings. Dipper takes an epic beating but is saved by the bell, or rather, by a game over. Rumble disappears. Wendy comes back from camp thinking the two boys became friends, and Stan loses his fear of heights, passing the trauma onto Mabel. Everything returns to normal, or as normal as it gets in this town. Lil Gideon never gets tired of embarrassing himself, and this time, he decides he needs to take the Mystery Shack by any means necessary. He tries a classic scam, faking a giant lottery check for Stan, hoping the old man will sign the house deed in the heat of the moment. But Stan, being the hustler he is, signs an insult instead of his name, and tells the pompadour dwarf to take a hike. Meanwhile, Dipper's ego takes a fatal hit. Suze measures the gang's height and discovers Mabel is exactly 1 millimeter taller than her brother. This sparks an instant Napoleon complex in the boy. He runs to the woods and, as usual, finds a convenient magical anomaly, crystals that grow and shrink objects. Basically, he builds Ant-Man tech adapted onto an old flashlight. Since nothing in this town works right, the sibling rivalry leads to the flashlight falling into Gideon's hands. The villain shrinks the twins to a honey. I Shrunk the Kids level and kidnaps them in a jar. Now, with his pocket-sized hostages, he goes back to blackmail Stan for the deed. The final showdown happens in a hall of mirrors Suze built, giving off a low-budget Enter the Dragon vibe. Gideon accidentally shrinks Suze, but the villain is defeated by the most lethal military tactic possible. Dipper and Mabel crawl into his shirt and tickle his armpits. Gideon is rolled off the property, but leaves us on a cliffhanger. He reveals he doesn't want the shack just out of spite, but because he knows there's a massive secret hidden inside. And to top it off, Stan rejects a real $10 million prize, thinking it was another scam. Karma never misses. In Gravity Falls, people are so addicted to holidays they invented Summerween, basically Halloween in the summer for people who can't wait until October. Stan is focused on scaring kids, but today's youth grew up watching Saw and don't even blink at his old school scares. Meanwhile, Dipper commits a gastronomic crime by throwing away bad candy, like those banana-flavored ones nobody likes, unaware that it's going to come back and bite him. The trouble starts when Wendy invites Dipper to a grown-up party. Wanting to look mature, he fates being sick so he doesn't have to go trick-or-treating with Mabel. But karma arrives fast in the form of the Summerween Trickster, a bizarre creature that looks like Slender Man but hungrier. He invades the shack and delivers an ultimatum. Either they hand over 500 pieces of candy before the jack-o'-melons go out, or they become dinner. The gang goes on a mission, and after Dipper agrees to wear a costume to get more candy, they hit the goal. But then the classic teen movie cliche hits. Wendy drives by. Dipper panics about looking childish, hides his costume, and accidentally knocks all the candy down a ravine. Mabel discovers her brother's lie, and the mood gets heavier than the monster, who shows up to collect the debt. Suze tries to save the day by running the beast over with his truck, but the villain regenerates like the T-1000 from Terminator 2. Cornered in a store, they discover the truth. The monster is literally made of the rejected candy no one wanted to eat. In a moment of questionable heroism, Suze goes full Kirby and starts eating the monster alive, chewing a pap out of its stomach. In the end, Stan finally manages to scare the kids, not with monsters, but by appearing in a towel in front of them, which is way more traumatic, and steals their candy.
What's that?
Dipper makes up with Wendy, who didn't care about the adult act anyway, and Seuss ends the night with the most disturbing line possible. "I ate a man alive tonight." Grunkle Stan is vibrating with joy over a TV show where people humiliate themselves for money, which pretty much sums up his life philosophy. He doesn't see tourists as people, but literally as walking wallets. Tired of this grumpy Scrooge vibe, Mabel challenges him to a bet. If she can make more profit by being nice, Stan has to sing an apology song. The old man accepts, leaves the shop in her hands, and goes to participate in a Wheel of Fortune style game show. Now in charge, Mabel tries to be the cool boss. She lets everything slide. Wendy has a party at work. Suze wears a ridiculous costume, and Dipper is sent to capture a real creature for the exhibit. The problem is, the boy returns with a gremloblin, a bizarre mix that looks like it came straight out of the movie Gremlins after taking steroids. Mabel's peace and love management collapses fast. She decides to give the monster a break. Yes, she gives a break to a carnivorous monster, and the beast wreaks havoc on the Mystery Shack. Besides smashing everything, the creature has the power to show people's greatest fears through its eyes. Like Batman's scarecrow, Dipper has to use a mirror to reflect the spell and drive the beast away. While the store turns into chaos, Stan is winning big on TV. But in the final round, he loses everything. The reason? The answer to the puzzle was the word please, and his pride is bigger than his bank account. Back in Gravity Falls, Mabel, now stressed and acting like a tyrant to fix the mess, discovers she won the bet by a few measly cents. She makes Stan do the apology dance, but quickly hands the job back, realizing being the boss is too much of a headache. The Pines family decides to clean up by throwing trash into a bottomless pit, because recycling isn't exactly Gravity Falls' strong suit. In the middle of the mess, a windstorm pushes everyone into the hole, as they fall eternally, in an Alice in Wonderland vibe, but with more garbage and fewer rabbits. They decide to tell stories to kill time. First, Dipper is suffering through puberty and his voice cracking. He explains that he turned to Old Man McGucket's formula and ends up with a Hollywood trailer narrator voice, full-on, in-a-world style.
Good morning, Dipper. I did it. I did it. Now I have a new voice.
He thinks it's great, but the family is terrified and tries to kill him. In the end, he accepts his normal voice, but Stan drinks the rest of the potion and starts talking like an anime girl.
So what did you do with the rest of that potion?
I dumped it in Stan's coffee.
Any of you kids seen my girdle? Where my girdle at?
Next history, Seuss tries to break a record on a pinball machine by cheating. The game doesn't like the glitch and sucks everyone into the system. Inside, they have to flee from a psychopathic cowboy skull. Seuss has to sacrifice his dream record to shut down the machine and save the twins, proving he's the real MVP of the series. Finally, Mabel had had enough. She was tired of Stan's lies, which reached the point of telling the cops a bear driving a car was his doctor, and puts magical truth teeth in him while he sleeps. The old man wakes up like Jim Carrey in Liar Liar, blurting out brutal truths and confessing federal crimes to the police. Mabel realizes that lying is essential for her uncle's legal survival and tosses the teeth into the pit. Suddenly, the group is spat out of the hole at the exact spot they fell in, discovering the pit is a wormhole. They decide to pretend nothing happened, and Stan, in a moment of genius, falls back in. Gravity Falls has turned into a furnace. It's that infernal heat that makes squirrels spontaneously combust and wax figures melt. The only salvation is the public pool, the natural habitat of sweaty teenagers in summer drama. Stan, in an act of pure class, arrives with pieces of floorboard stuck to his body because the heat melted the house's glue, but his focus is elsewhere, the perfect sun lounge chair. But Lil Gideon, that psycho mini Elvis, is already there occupying the throne, starting a passive-aggressive war for a spot in the shade. Meanwhile, Mabel's romance radar pings on a mysterious boy who won't leave the water. His name is Mermando, and after a lot of weird talk and questionable flirting, he reveals a secret. He's a merman, basically an Aquaman who got lost and ended up in a public pool. Mabel's plan? A Free Willy-style rescue operation to return the fishman to the lake. On the other side, Dipper sees Wendy working as a lifeguard, and, trying to impress his crush, gets a job there too. His boss is Mr. Poolcheck, a guy more intense than a Full Metal Jacket instructor, who puts Dipper in charge of watching everything.
I guess?
Welcome to the deep end, son.
Well, thanks.
The kid takes the job so seriously that when he sees Mabel fleeing with the merman at night in a golf cart, he goes on an all-out chase thinking she's stealing pool floats. The chase ends at the lake where Mermando starts to dry out. Mabel forces Dipper to do reverse mouth-to-mouth with a water bottle to save him, which is humiliating on an epic level. Mermando escapes to the lake, gives Mabel a kiss, and she celebrates her first kiss while mocking Dipper for kissing the fish too. The next day, Dipper is fired, Wendy gets the boot too, and Stan discovers that Gideon glued the perfect chair down with super glue, leaving the old man stuck there like a garden decoration. Coexistence at the Mystery Shack is getting more complicated than a reality TV show. Dipper can't stand Mabel's sleepovers with Candy and Grenda anymore, being kicked out of his own room and almost becoming wolf dinner in the yard, the Revenant style. But his luck seems to change when Seuss, poking around the house, discovers a secret room hidden behind a wall. Naturally, Stan turns it into a sick competition. The room goes to whoever sucks up to him the most. Dipper and Mabel enter a suck-up war, but in the middle of the fight, they step on a weird rug and generate static electricity. The result is a classic Freaky Friday. The twins swap bodies. Chaos ensues. Mabel, in Dipper's body, tries to sabotage her brother's image by acting like a maniac, but ends up trapped in an awkward talk with Stan about the changes of the male body, a twisted puberty talk that leaves her traumatized. Meanwhile, Dipper, trapped in Mabel's body, is forced to attend girls' night and read werewolf romances that look like Twilight rejects. In the meantime, Sue swaps bodies with Waddles the pig. Suddenly, we have a pig acting like a functional human, even landing a raise and a fiance, while the bacon version of Seuss runs desperately from Old Man McGucket, who is dying to have a BBQ. In the end, a general swap fest happens on the rug, everyone returns to normal, and the twins realize they actually miss sharing a room, leaving the new room behind and ending Seuss's dream of living as a successful swine. The Mystery Shack turns into a teenage disaster zone when Mabel announces that her favorite boy band, Several Times, is coming to town. The hype is so intense she looks like a K-pop stan on a BTS release day.
It's because today is the greatest day of my life. Mwah!
Ow!
Several Times is playing at the Gravity Falls Civic Center and Buffet.
Meanwhile, Dipper is busy mocking the music industry with Wendy until Robbie shows up to kill the vibe. The resident goth emo plays a suspicious song for Wendy, who magically forgets she was about to dump him. Dipper, with his jealousy-fueled sixth sense tingling, immediately realizes something is fishy. Mabel and her squad sneak into the concert dressing room and stumble upon a bizarre reality. The singers aren't human. They are genetically engineered clones kept in hamster cages by a tyrannical producer. In a heroic and slightly criminal act, the girls kidnap the band in a backpack and take them home. While Stan helps Dipper analyze Robbie's song, motivated by a lifelong grudge against hippies, who stole his girlfriend back in the day, they discover subliminal brainwashing messages when playing the CD backward, classic 80s satanic panic style. Up in the attic, Mabel starts treating the clones like living dolls, kicking her friends out and becoming so possessive she'd give Annie from Misery a run for her money. In a double climax, Mabel realizes she's become the monster she hated and decides to set the boys free in the woods, where they'll likely try to befriend bears. Meanwhile, Dipper rushes to expose Robbie in front of Wendy. The plan works and she dumps him on the spot, but Dipper gets a reality check. Wendy is pissed at him too for trying to take advantage of the situation, leaving the kids stranded in the ultimate friend zone, while the local police are as useless as ever. Losing the roof of their cruiser to a flying monster, the vibe at the Mystery Shack is quite different. Stan, with the patience of a Tibetan monk, only the exact opposite, is left in charge of Waddles while Mabel is out. The result? He leaves the pig outside to avoid any property damage, and the poor thing gets snatched by a giant pterodactyl. Yes, Gravity Falls just went full Jurassic Park. Stan tries to play the action hero, lying about fighting the beast barehanded, but the guilt eventually kicks in. The team assembles a rescue squad, bringing along Old Man McGucket and a super hyped Suze, who is so clumsy he drives Dipper crazy by ruining the photographic evidence. In an abandoned mine, they find a lost world, with dinosaurs preserved in amber, but the mood shifts. Mabel discovers her uncle's lie and gives him a cold shoulder worthy of Frozen, swearing never to speak to him again. When the pterodactyl attacks, chaos reigns. McGucket becomes a snack temporarily, and Stan falls into a pit with Waddles. That's when the old cheapskate has his moment of redemption. He protects the pig with his own life, and in a fit of rage, lands a cinematic punch right in the dinosaur's face, turning his previous lie into pure reality.
From X hard I stab at thee!
Meanwhile, Seuss proves he's more than just comic relief, using obscure knowledge about reptilian vision to save the kids. They escape by hitching a ride on an exploding geyser. The family reconciles while covered in prehistoric goo, and McGucket, well, he manages to muscle his way out of the monster's stomach. Peace in Gravity Falls lasts shorter than an old iPhone battery because Lil Gideon is back and out for blood. After failing miserably to crack Stan's safe in the real world, he discovers the code is literally stored inside the old man's mind. The Pompadour Brat's solution? Summon Bill Cipher, a triangular demon who looks like an Illuminati mascot on an energy drink bender. Mabel and Seuss catch the bizarre pact and rush to warn Dipper. With no other choice and their uncle napping on the couch, the trio decides to pull an Inception and enter Stan's mind to stop the code from being stolen. The place is a complete black and white mess that defies logic. Bill arrives and immediately starts the terror, literally blowing a hole through Dipper's chest. Don't worry, it's a dream, he's fine, proving he isn't playing around. While Bill searches for the memory of the code disguised as Sue's, Dipper wastes time digging through his uncle's memories and ends up depressed, thinking Stan genuinely hates him. But things escalate quickly. Bill grabs the code, Mabel kicks the memory into a bottomless pit, and the demon goes ballistic, turning everything into a psychedelic nightmare worthy of Freddy Krueger, complete with Seuss turning into a British dogman. Amidst the chaos, Dipper has an epiphany after seeing a memory where Stan explains he's only hard on him to prepare him for the world. If they're in a dream, they have Matrix-style powers. The battle turns into total madness, with Mabel shooting kitten heads out of her hands and Sue's firing question mark beams. They manage to banish the evil triangle, who leaves behind a classic apocalyptic villain monologue. The group wakes up celebrating their mental victory, thinking they saved the day, but they didn't. Gideon, tired of magical games, takes it to the real world and simply uses dynamite to blow the safe open. He steals the deed, the ceiling literally falls in, and he evicts the Pines family from the Mystery Shack.
What are you guys talking about?
Spoiler alert, Stanford! I've got the deed! The Mystery Shack belongs to me! So get off my property!
The Pines' lives have been turned upside down. With Gideon in control of the Mystery Shack, the family is crashing at Seuss's grandma's house, and the mood is total defeat. The pine-sized villain wastes no time announcing the construction of Gideonland, a narcissistic theme park where even Waddles the pig is forced to wear a wig and become a mascot. Trying to be the hero, Stan attempts to recover the deed but fails and decides to send the kids back to California. Dipper and Mabel, refusing to accept game over, try to storm the shack with the help of the gnomes. But Gideon reverses the spell, and to make matters worse, steals journal number 3. Without the book, Dipper hits an identity crisis, feeling like a nobody, and accepts his fate on the bus out of town. But Gideon discovers he needs the other journals, and chases the bus while piloting a giant robot with his own face on it, looking like a rejected Power Rangers villain. The mech corners them at a cliff, kidnaps Mabel, and threatens everyone. That's when Dipper snaps. He leaps into the robot's cockpit and beats the living daylights out of Gideon with his bare hands, proving he doesn't need a book to be tough. The robot crashes and Mabel finally saves the day using her grappling hook, which seemed useless until now. On the ground, Stan delivers the final blow. He reveals that the buttons Gideon handed out were actually hidden cameras and microphones, exposing the villain to the entire town. Gideon is arrested, the shack is returned to the Pines, and everything seems back to normal, or so it seems. In the final scene, Stan, who spent the whole time pretending not to believe in the supernatural, goes down to a secret lab behind the vending machine. He brings all 3 journals together and activates an interdimensional portal, leaving it a mystery whether he's a hero or the ultimate threat.
Here we go.
With Gideon out of the picture, the Mystery Shack reopens, and Stan is laughing all the way to the bank with the tourist money. But the joy is short-lived when 2 government agents show up in town, giving off major Men in Black vibes, investigating the energy spikes we know came from the basement portal. Dipper, desperate for validation, wants to hand over the town's supernatural secrets to the feds, but Stan blocks him, telling him to act like a normal kid for once. Obviously, Dipper doesn't listen. He steals the agent's contact info and tries to prove the journal is real, since the guy guys think it's just a kid's fantasy, Dipper decides to read a random spell out loud to prove them wrong. The result? He accidentally summons a horde of actual zombies. The kid wanted to be right and ended up creating an episode of The Walking Dead in the middle of the shack's grand reopening party. The situation spirals out of control, the agents are overwhelmed, and the Pines family is cornered inside the shack. That's when Stan drops the act, grabs a baseball bat, and starts cracking skulls, finally admitting he's always known about the weirdness in Gravity Falls, but played dumb to protect his niece and nephew. In the middle of the zombie apocalypse, they accidentally discover a game changer. Under blacklight, journal number 3 reveals messages written in invisible ink, and the zombie's weakness, perfect vocal harmony. The solution is ridiculous but brilliant. Dipper, Mabel, and Stan get on the roof and belt out a high school musical-style karaoke session. The singing literally makes the monsters' heads explode, saving the day. The danger is over, but now Dipper knows the journal hides far more secrets than he ever imagined. Things are moving fast. Dipper and Wendy are having a trashy horror movie marathon, and the chemistry is obvious. Dipper tries to make a move but chickens out at the last second. To escape the awkwardness, he takes the whole gang to investigate a secret bunker hidden under a tree, thinking he's finally going to find the author. The place is an eerie fallout shelter, packed with enough canned food to last until 2070. Deep underground, Mabel finds a love letter from her brother and decides to play the Cupid of Chaos, locking Dipper and Wendy in a closet to force a confession.
This is for your own good.
What? What the? Mabel, let us out!
But the mood is interrupted when they find a man claiming to be the author. Spoiler, he isn't. He's a shapeshifter, a creature straight out of The Thing, who wants the journal to copy new forms. The creature turns into a freakish hybrid of Dipper and Mabel, and the chase turns into an alien movie. In the climax, the monster takes Wendy's form. Dipper, thinking the real Wendy is dead, blabs his "I love you" in a moment of despair. But when the real Wendy appears, we get the classic "shoot him, I'm the real one" impasse. Dipper recognizes the original by an inside joke and buries an axe in the imposter. They freeze the creature in a cryogenic chamber, Han Solo style, as it screams a macabre prophecy in Dipper's voice. Back outside, the most painful moment isn't fighting monsters, it's the friend zone. Wendy gives Dipper a very mature talk, saying she's too old for him, but their friendship is worth more than any romance. The kid's heart is bruised but intact, and the consolation prize? Sue's found the real author's old laptop in the bunker. The hunt continues. The rivalry returns in full force. Mabel is depressed because Pacifica Northwest, the Regina George of Gravity Falls, is dominating the local news. To cheer her sister up, Dipper suggests a trip to the mini golf course. But guess who shows up to ruin the day? Pacifica herself, oozing arrogance and challenging Mabel to a midnight duel for the family honor. During practice, Dipper, who can't go 5 minutes without poking his nose where it doesn't belong, discovers the secret of the course. Every hole is controlled by tiny living people called Lilliputians. It's like Toy Story, but with golf balls and rival factions that hate each other. Dipper has the genius idea to manipulate these creatures to guarantee Mabel's victory, promising a golden sticker to the group that helps the most. Basically, pure cheating. The plan works too well. The creatures take the competition so seriously, they decide the best way to ensure Mabel wins is by literally eliminating the competition. They kidnap Pacifica for a sacrifice. When Mabel realizes things have gone full Hunger Games, she tries to call off the hit and eats the prize sticker.
It's also clean.
The tiny monsters, formerly rivals, unite like zombies from World War Z with one goal: cut Mabel to get the trophy back. What started as a game turns into a trash horror nightmare. Mabel and Pacifica are forced to fight together to escape this army of murderous dolls. After surviving the attack of the psychopathic garden gnomes, they even reach an unprecedented truce in Stan's car, with Pacifica trying peasant food for the first time. Friendship is still a long way off, but at least they aren't trying to kill each other, for now. Thanks to Suze, the bunker laptop finally works, but there's a password blocking access. While Dipper tries to play Mr. Robot Hacker, Mabel is too busy flirting with Gabe, a snobby puppeteer who loves dolls more than people. To impress him, she lies and says she's an expert, promising an epic puppet show and recruiting everyone to sew puppets all week. Dipper is pulling all-nighters, looking like a zombie from The Walking Dead. Who should appear? Bill Cipher, the Illuminati Dorito himself. He offers a trade, the password for a favor. Dipper refuses immediately, remembering the past chaos. But the situation gets desperate when Mabel stands her brother up to focus on her crush, and the laptop starts a countdown to format everything Mission Impossible style. In a panic, Dipper accepts Bill's deal. The price? A puppet. The problem is the classic deal with the devil loophole. Bill doesn't want an old sock, he wants Dipper's body. The villain takes control, kicks the boy's soul out, and destroys the laptop in front of him. Now, Bipper, Bill and Dipper's body, wants to destroy journal number 3, which Mabel borrowed for her play. Dipper, now a Casper-style ghost, possesses a sock puppet to try and warn his sister. In the middle of the show, the most bizarre battle of the century goes down. Mabel versus her brother's possessed body. Bill tries to steal the journal, but Mabel realizes that while he has mental powers, he's trapped in the physical body of a sedentary teenager who hasn't slept in days. She exploits this weakness, exhausting Bipper until the body collapses from fatigue, forcing the demon out. The show ends in disaster, with explosions and Mabel's crush leaving while kissing his own puppets. But at least Dipper gets his body back, even if it's incredibly sore. The focus shifts to Seuss, who is under intense pressure from his grandmother to find a girlfriend for a wedding, essentially living his own version of the 40-year-old virgin. Dipper and Mabel try to play matchmaker at the mall, but Seuss has zero social skills and freezes around real women. Desperate, he finds a solution in a Japanese dating sim, where he meets Giffany. At first, it's an otaku's dream, a pink-haired virtual waifu who does whatever he wants, but things turn dark, feeling like the movie Her mixed with Fatal Attraction. Giffany is jealous, possessive, and keeps Seuss locked in his room for a 13-hour marathon. The twins intervene and force him back into the real world where, by some miracle, he meets Melody. She's one of us, works at a meat counter, and loves the same weird stuff he does. The perfect match. The problem is the 2D girlfriend doesn't take rejection well. She hacks into the power grid and follows Seuss to his date at a kid's pizzeria. The place literally becomes a Five Nights at Freddy's level, with Giffany possessing the creepy animatronic robots to try and eliminate Melody. Meanwhile, Stan, with his usual harebrained schemes, is at the same location trying to steal a robotic badger for his trash collection. In the middle of the mechanical chaos, Seuss has to find his courage and choose between fantasy and reality. He throws the game disc into a pizza oven, frying the pixelated villain for good. The episode ends with Seuss starting a long-distance relationship with Melody, and Stan, in a totally random post-credits scene, living it up in Las Vegas with an old statue. It's a horror anthology today, with Stan holding a tourist hostage to listen to stories so he can push his overpriced junk. In the first legend, our favorite con man steals a witch's watch and wakes up with no hands, looking like a defective Lego figure. The whole family goes to the witch's cave, which is basically a nest for Thing from the Addams Family. The sorceress demands a romantic kiss to break the curse, but Stan, who has his limits, prefers to play interior decorator. They give her lair a reality TV makeover. The witch lands a date with another adventurer, and Stan gets his precious hands back.
Shaky! Scratchy! I've missed you, old rascals!
In the second story, Dipper tries to use magical mushrooms to get smart. Chill, it's a journal thing. But Waddles eats them all instead. The pig goes through an instant Planet of the Apes evolution, builds a smart chair, and becomes a British accented physics genius. While Dipper is thrilled to have a Tony Stark-level lab partner, Mabel gets depressed because she lost her silly pet. Realizing that supreme intelligence is worthless without his owner's happiness, Waddles makes the ultimate sacrifice. He dumbs himself down on purpose to go back to being the pig Mabel loves. Finally, we discover Mabel has a crippling fear of stop-motion movies. Stan, helping as always, takes the gang to meet a reclusive animator who uses black magic, a regular Dr. Frankenstein of clay. The clay figures rebel and attack in the style of a Ray Harryhausen monster. To save everyone from being turned into sculptures, Mabel has to overcome her trauma and reshapes the lead monster into something out of My Little Pony. Back in the present, since the tourist didn't buy anything, Stan serves him a spiked drink, and the guy wakes up trapped in a display case as the shack's newest freak attraction, classic Stan. Meanwhile, Lazy Susan catches a group of gnomes stealing a pie, but before she can even call 911, she's kidnapped by hooded figures. It looks like the start of a slasher flick, but it's just a Tuesday in Gravity Falls. At the shack, Mabel is in a slump after getting news from Ramondo. He's marrying a manatee queen to prevent an underwater civil war. Dipper tries to lift the mood with a new conspiracy theory. He thinks the author of the journals is Old Man McGucket. When they they confront him, he claims not to remember anything since 1982, but flips out at the sight of an eye symbol, triggering a Winter Soldier-style trauma. Investigating the History Museum, the gang finds a secret passage to the lair of the Society of the Blind Eye. It's a cult that uses a ray gun to erase the memories of residents whenever they see something supernatural. It's literally the plot of Men in Black, put on a thrift store budget and with red robes. Mabel, tired of her heartbreaks, considers using the gun to erase her ex-crushes, wanting to pull her own eternal sunshine of the spotless mind. The plan to steal McGucket's memories goes south, and they are surrounded by cultists who turn out to be ordinary citizens. When the leader tries to wipe the kids' minds, McGucket sacrifices himself and jumps in front of the beam. Just one detail: his brain is already so fried the gun has no effect. He saves the day with a headbutt, and Dipper wipes the entire society's memory. As they watch the recovered memories, they get a gut punch. McGucket was a brilliant scientist who worked with the real author. He created the memory gun to cope with the horrors he saw, but he got addicted to the process and destroyed his own mind. In the end, Mabel decides to embrace her sad memories to grow up, while Stan appears in the basement, hurt but determined, working on that portal that's definitely going to cause trouble. Blendin Blandan escapes from future prison, looking like a mix between a Cyberpunk 2077 villain and a stressed-out DMV employee. He wants revenge on Dipper and Mabel for past time travel shenanigans and invokes Globnar, a gladiatorial combat supervised by a giant baby. Yes, the future is weird. Meanwhile, in the present, the twins discover it's Seuss's birthday. They throw a classic surprise party, but Seuss's reaction is worse than the Grinch at Christmas. He hates the day and falls into a deep depression. To save the mood, they drag him to laser tag, but Blendin appears out of nowhere and kidnaps Dipper and Mabel to the future. Trying to escape, the kids accidentally end up back in 2002. The visuals are nostalgic, but the vibe is heavy. They find a young Suze waiting for his dad at his birthday party in a heartbreaking scene reminiscent of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. The deadbeat dad never shows, only sending postcards, which explains our favorite handyman's lifelong trauma. Back in the future for Globnar, the twins have to fight for survival in a Hunger Games-style arena, facing challenges ranging from chess to hardcore laser tag. They defeat Blendin and win a time wish. Logic says Seuss should use it to bring his father back, but he refuses. Seuss realizes the Pines are his true family and chooses to heal his friend's injuries and wish for an infinite pizza. Priorities, right? In the end, he proves he's the heart of the series. Dipper finally scored the golden ticket into Wendy's cool group. They're hanging out at the local cemetery because nothing screams cool teen like chilling on tombstones, until things turn into a teen drama. They find Robbie crying in an open grave, looking like a low-budget version of Edward Cohen in mourning. While Dipper wants to stay far away from that pit of sadness, Mabel decides to play Cupid and promises to find the soft goth a girlfriend. After discovering Robbie's parents are disturbingly happy, Mabel focuses on hooking him up with Tambry. The date is a cringeworthy disaster, like watching The Office without any breaks. The solution? Steal a love potion from the love god, a cherub who looks like an indie festival band frontman. Mabel spikes their food, and boom, they become the murciest couple in history. The problem is, it blows up the group dynamic. Wendy is disgusted to see her friend with her ex, Nate gets jealous, and the group splits up. Dipper, desperate not to lose his social status, convinces Mabel to reverse the spell. Meanwhile, Stan tries to cash in on the Woodstick Festival by creating a giant balloon. The design fails miserably.
I eat kids, but we're kids.
It's heaven's punishment for our terrible taste in everything!
In the rush to steal the antidote, the love god summons the ghosts of Mabel's past crushes to distract her. The chase only ends when Stan's cannibal balloon crashes onto the love god. In the end, Mabel realizes Robbie and Tambry are genuinely happy and decides not to interfere. The group of friends reunites, laughing at poor Thompson's expense, proving that nothing brings people together like someone else's humiliation. The Northwest are in a paranormal bind. Plates are flying and animal heads are speaking in the middle of dinner. Classic horror movie stuff. Pacifica's dad sees Dipper in the paper and decides to hire the kid. Dipper hates the family, obviously, but Mabel wants to go to their fancy party so badly to hunt for a rich husband that he takes the job in exchange for 3 invites. At the mansion, while Mabel, Candy, and Grenda compete for the attention of a handsome Austrian baron, Dipper and Pacifica face off against a Category 10 ghost. They capture the spirit in a silver mirror, but Dipper discovers the ugly truth. The ghost is a lumberjack who built the mansion and was cheated by Pacifica's ancestors, dying without ever being paid. Outraged by the elite's injustice and falling for the ghost's sob story, Dipper accidentally breaks the mirror. Bad move. The possessed lumberjack starts turning everyone into wooden statues, looking like a vengeful Groot. Even Dipper ends up as rustic decor. It's up to Pacifica to save the day. The ghost says the curse only breaks if the gates are open to the commoners, but her parents try to stop her by using a bell to control her like a Pavlovian dog. Pacifica has to fight her conditioning, tells her parents to shove it, and opens the gates. The curse breaks, and the party gets way better with the townspeople raiding the buffet. Grenda wins over the Baron by force, and Dipper and Pacifica have a sweet moment intentionally getting mud on the expensive carpet. But to kill the mood, Old Man McGucket pulls Dipper aside and shows him the repaired laptop. There's a countdown to the end of the world, and hiding at the party, government agents confirm the time to act has arrived. The apocalypse is coming. Stan is in the basement playing mad scientist with toxic waste, ignoring every safety protocol in existence. He preps the machine and flips a switch, which starts causing bizarre gravity anomalies across town. The next day, the twins' party is interrupted when a tactical team raids the Mystery Shack. Agents Powers and Trigger, who survived the zombie attack, arrest Stan for theft of hazardous materials. The kids are rescued to be sent to social services, but Dipper and Mabel go full Mission Impossible, escape the moving car, and head back to investigate and clear their uncle's name. But the investigation goes south. They find the security tapes and see Stan himself stealing the nuclear waste barrels like a Breaking Bad era Walter White. Worse, they find boxes of fake IDs and an old newspaper reporting the death of Stan Pines. Their trust is shattered. Meanwhile, Stan escapes custody by taking advantage of a Matrix-style gravity glitch and rushes to the lab. In the basement, there's a standoff with Seuss, who was protecting the machine on his boss's orders, but the kids get through. Dipper discovers his great-uncle had all 3 journals the whole time and concludes the machine will destroy the universe. Just as Dipper is about to hit the emergency shutdown, Stan arrives, begging them to stop. The scene is tense. Everyone is floating in zero gravity. Dipper is screaming it's a trap, and Stan is asking for a single vote of faith. Mabel, crying, holds the decision in her hands. In a moment of blind faith, she decides to let go of the button and trust Grunkle Stan. The countdown hits 0, a light consumes Gravity Falls, and the anomaly stops. Amidst the wreckage, a mysterious man steps out of the portal. He picks up the journal, reveals he has 6 fingers, and Stan drops the bombshell. That is the author of the journals, and his brother. With the portal open and the author finally back in our dimension, we expected a tearful hug, but we got a punch in the face instead. The newcomer is not happy about the rescue, and tension explodes. Here we discover the truth that breaks everyone's brain. The Stan we've known this whole time is actually Stanley. The genius brother who stepped out of the portal is the real Stanford. Yes, it's a spy movie level identity swap. To avoid being arrested by the federal agents surrounding the shack, the two start telling their origin story, which is a flashback to 1960s New Jersey. Stanley was the troublemaker who was good in a scrap, and Stanford was the 6-finger genius dreaming of a top-tier college. This dynamic worked until Stanley accidentally broke the science project that would have guaranteed his brother's future. The result? Their father kicks Stanley out of the house, and the dynamic duo splits for years. While Stanley became a bankrupt con man, Stanford went to Gravity Falls, built the shack, and with McGucket's help, created the portal. But when things got too dangerous and McGucket quit, Ford called his brother, not to apologize, but to tell him to take the journal far away. Pride gets in the way. A brutal fight breaks out, and that's when Stanley gets that burn on his back, which we thought was a tattoo. In the heat of the moment, he shoves his brother into the portal, which activates and sucks Ford into another dimension, consumed by guilt and penniless. Stanley took his brother's name and house, turned the lab into the Mystery Shack to pay the bills, and spent 30 years trying to bring Ford back. Back in the present, agents storm the basement, but Ford pulls out a device and wipes their memories, pure MIB style.
Why am I standing in some sort of goofy, fun knick-knack house?
The problem is the bitterness hasn't faded. Ford makes a deal for Stanley to leave at the end of the summer, leaving Dipper and Mabel terrified that their fate is to end up separated and bitter just like their uncles. The day begins quietly at the Mystery Shack until Ford emerges battling a multi-tentacled monster, proving he's basically a senior citizen version of Indiana Jones. Dipper is desperate to become the Robin to Ford's Batman, but he gets the cold shoulder from his great uncle, who claims it's far too dangerous. Feeling rejected, the boy tries to convince Mabel to play his favorite board game, Dungeons, Dungeons, and more Dungeons. It's like Dungeons and Dragons, only with way more math and tedious paperwork. Mabel and Stan relentlessly mock Dipper, channeling that classic 80s movie nerd bullying vibe. But the tables turn when Dipper accidentally falls into the basement and discovers that Ford isn't just a monster hunter. Ill's a hardcore nerd addicted to the same RPG. The two dive into a gaming marathon that spills into the living room, annoying Mabel and Stan as they try to watch the season finale of Ducktective. The argument heats up, and Stan tosses an infinity-sided die, triggering a real-life Jumanji scenario. The die summons Probabilitor the Annoying, an insufferable wizard who kidnaps Dipper and Ford to absorb their intelligence. Now, the only hope for rescue lies with Mabel, Grenda, and Stan winning the wizard's game. They enter in a holographic arena, where the game pieces are miniature versions of Dipper and Ford. Stan, who knows nothing about elves or magic, wins the only way he knows how, by cheating on his dice rolls. With the nerds saved, the family gathers to watch TV, where the Ducktective is betrayed by his twin brother, a far from subtle jab at the Stans. The mood shifts when Ford takes Dipper to the lab to show him an unstable interdimensional rift, a crack in reality caused by the portal. He then delivers the classic line that ruins any family dynamic: "Don't tell your sister." Stan's day starts with a heavy dose of the Monday morning blues: wet slippers, a burnt-out light bulb, and public humiliation at the hands of the local teams. Grunkle Stan's morale is at rock bottom, feeling like he gets no respect. However, opportunity knocks when the town's mayor, a man who looked at least 150 years old, finally kicks the bucket. It's election season in Gravity Falls, and Stan decides to run purely for the power and glory. His only obstacle is Gideon's father, Bud Gleeful, who enters the race with the fake smile of a used car salesman. Dipper and Mabel know Stan is a walking PR disaster who couldn't win a neighborhood council vote on his own. Their solution? Dipper grabs a mind control tied from Ford's lab. The plan is to turn Stan into a human ventriloquist dummy, with the twins controlling his every word from afar. It's like Ratatouille, but instead of a chef rat, it's two kids controlling a grumpy old man in a political debate. What they don't know is that Bud is also a puppet. Gideon, ruling from prison, is using black magic to possess his father and secure the win. When Stan realizes his nibblings were manipulating him, he's furious and bails on the plan. Gideon seizes the distraction, kidnaps the twins, and ties them to a statue rigged with dynamite. In that moment, Stan proves he doesn't need a fancy speech. He goes full Rambo, punching a bald eagle right in the face. Yes, the symbol of freedom takes a right hook, and saves the kids milliseconds before the blast. The heroic act earns him the eagle's vote, but the joy is short-lived. Stan's criminal record is so extensive he's immediately disqualified. The office falls to Tyler the cute biker, that random guy from town. In the end, the family reconciles, but the post-credits scene is chilling. In his cell, Gideon draws a symbol on the wall and summons Bill Cipher. Things are about to get real. Ford wakes up in a cold sweat after a hostile encounter with Bill Cipher in the mindscape. The one-eyed triangle is itching to start the apocalypse and warns that time is running out. To prevent Bill from entering anyone's mind and turning reality into a Salvador Dali painting, Ford needs to shield the Mystery Shack with unicorn magic. Mabel, thinking she's about to live through a My Little Pony episode, recruits Grenda, Candy, and Wendy for this enchanted quest. Deep in the woods, they find Celestabel Beathable, the last unicorn, but the creature is more toxic than Regina George from Mean Girls. She claims Mabel isn't pure of heart and dismisses her. Mabel tries everything, performing 1,000 good deeds, planting trees, but is still rejected. Wendy eventually decides that kindness isn't working. It's time for a Breaking Bad approach. They negotiate fairy dust with some gnomes in a back alley pub to drug the unicorn. Meanwhile, Ford takes Dipper to the sub-basement. He hooks the boy up to a machine to shield his mind, but Dipper grows suspicious after discovering Ford has a hidden shrine to Bill Cipher and was once friends with the demon, the kid snaps. Thinking his great uncle is possessed, he grabs the memory erasing gun and fires. Luckily, Ford has a metal plate in his head. He explains that he was tricked by Bill years ago, believing the triangle was his muse, when in fact he just wanted to use the portal for a world-ending party. Outside, the plot twist hits. Unicorns can't read minds, they're just vain con artists. The girls expose the fraud, and an all-out brawl ensues. They beat down the magical horse and return home with a fistful of mane. The shack is protected, but in the nightmare realm, Bill watches. If he can't get inside the house, he'll have to find a puppet on the outside.
I guess I can't possess anyone inside the shack, so I'll just have to find my next pawn on the outside.
Stan decides the best way to spend their time isn't worrying about the impending apocalypse, but seeking revenge on rival tourist traps in a National Lampoon's Vacation-style road trip. Everyone piles into the RV with a clear mission: vandalize the competition. Along the way, poor Seuss gets forgotten in a corn maze, left behind like a glitched NPC in a video game mission. Inside the trailer, Mabel discovers Dipper still isn't over Wendy, and is hoarding photos of her like an amateur stalker. Stan takes on the role of Hitch, but with the ethics of Saul Goodman, teaching his nephew how to be confident. Surprisingly, it works. As they destroy giant balls of yarn and upside-down houses, Dipper starts collecting phone numbers from random girls like their Pokemon cards. The problem arises when Candy starts liking him, and Dipper only agrees to a date to avoid being awkward. At their final stop, Mystery Mountain, karma strikes. All the girls Dipper flirted with show up at the same time, leading to ultimate public humiliation. But things are worse for Stan. His date with the park owner Darlene turns into a horror movie when she's revealed to be a giant hungry spider woman, a vibe somewhere between Arachnophobia and Black Widow. The kids have to save their uncle, and Candy uses her brains to sabotage the Sky Tram and escape the monster. In the end, she dumps Dipper because he screams too high-pitched in the face of danger, and they head home. The surprise? The Mystery Shack was completely tagged by rivals while they were away, and Seuss is still in that cornfield waiting for rescue. The twins' birthday week has arrived, which means summer is ending, and the real life is knocking at the door. Mabel wants an epic party, but reality hits her harder than a Super Bowl linebacker. While visiting the local high school to plan the event, she discovers that high school isn't High School Musical. It's a depressing indie drama where happiness goes to die. To make matters worse, Grenda and Candy are leaving town and can't make the party. The fear of growing up takes a serious hold. While Mabel faces an existential crisis, Dipper is in full sci-fi mode with Uncle Ford. Their mission? To fix the dimensional rift that's on the verge of exploding. The bombshell revelation of the day is that all of Gravity Falls is actually a crater formed by a massive UFO crash millions of years ago. It's Independence Day meets the X-Files. They infiltrate the alien ship to fight a cosmic adhesive, fight off security droids, and Dipper proves his mettle by saving his uncle. Impressed, Ford makes an offer Dipper can't refuse: become his apprentice and stay in Gravity Falls forever, leaving his normal life in California behind. The kid accepts, forgetting his walkie-talkie was on. Mabel hears everything, and her world collapses. Feeling abandoned and betrayed, she flees into the woods, accidentally grabbing the wrong backpack. That's when the time traveler Blendam Blondan appears, offering a shady deal to create a time bubble, so summer lasts forever. Desperate and vulnerable, Mabel hands over the dimensional rift from her brother's bag. The cruel twist? Blendon was possessed by Bill Cipher. He smashes the flask on the ground like a glass at a Greek wedding, tears reality apart, and triggers the catastrophic event known as Weirdmageddon. The sky turns blood red, chaos reigns, and the malicious triangle finally gains physical form. We're in real trouble now. His first move is to trap Mabel in an indestructible pink bubble, while Blendon summons the time police only for them to be vaporized faster than the Flash. Gravity Falls officially becomes a living nightmare. Bill summons his friends from another dimension, a crew weirder than background characters in a Guillermo del Toro movie. Pacifica's father tries to suck up to the villain for a position of power, but Bill simply reshuffles every feature on the man's face in a moment of body horror that would make Cronenberg proud. The evil triangle builds a massive pyramid, petrifies the townsfolk, and declares that time is dead. Meanwhile, Dipper and Ford try to play snipers. Ford has a quantum gun for a one-hit kill on Bill, but the universe is so glitched that the church bell comes to life and ruins his aim at the crucial moment. The plan fails miserably. Bill destroys the church with a laser, burns the journals right in front of Dipper, and turns Ford into a gold statue to use as a backscratcher. It's a total humiliation. Cut to 3 days later, the town has become a post-apocalyptic wasteland, a mix of Mad Max and Fallout. Dipper is surviving solo until he finds Wendy in an abandoned mall. She's gone full Hunger Games, armed with traps. The team is bolstered by Seuss, who is now wandering the wastes dressed like a wise RPG nomad. The problem is that Gideon has allied with Bill and become the sheriff of this desert, guarding the key to Mabel's bubble. An insane car chase ensues through weirdness bubbles, transforming the characters into anime versions and even bizarre live-action forms.
Brace yourself!
Ultimately, Dipper convinces Gideon to stop being Bill's lackey and become a hero. Gideon holds off the monsters while the trio enters Mabel's bubble, heading straight into the unknown. Inside the bubble, the vibe shifts from Mad Max to a setting inspired by the Barbie movie mixed with Teletubbies. This is Mabeland, a sugar-coated paradise of saturated colors where physics don't exist and everything is designed to keep you forcefully happy. While Bill Cipher is having a meltdown outside because he discovered he's trapped in Gravity Falls by an invisible force field, Dipper and the gang try not to vomit rainbows. Mabel is the mayor of this delusion, flanked by Zyler and Kraz, two guys who look like they stepped out of a cheesy 80s soda commercial. She introduces Dippy Fresh, a radical and insufferable version of Dipper, who skateboards and offers high fives every 5 seconds. It's the peak of cringe. The trap is psychological and heavy. Suze finds the father he never had. Wendy gets to destroy the school with a monster truck, and Dipper is nearly seduced by a fake Wendy promising a relationship. However, when he refuses the temptation, she disintegrates into a pile of cockroaches. Pure horror. Since Dipper breaks the only rule, mentioning reality, he is put on trial. It's literally Dipper versus a jury of various Mabels. He uses their scrapbook of memories to prove that even though reality is hard, full of bad days and Valentine's Day rejections, going through it together is what makes them strong. In a decisive moment, Dipper promises to give up the apprenticeship with Ford so he doesn't leave his sister. The speech convinces the original Mabel, the twins' hug pops the bubble, and the fantasy world melts away. Back in Hell on Earth, the group rushes to the Mystery Shack, expecting to find only rubble, but surprise, the place is intact and has become a refugee bunker. And who is leading the resistance, surrounded by magical creatures and survivors? None other than Grunkle Stan, ready for war. At the Mystery Shack, it's a zombie apocalypse vibe, but with gnomes on the menu if the food runs out. Stan just wants to hide in the bunker, but Dipper and Mabel convince the town to fight back. Old Man McGucket goes full redneck Tony Stark and transforms the entire shack into a colossal megazord, the Shacktron. It's Pacific Rim time. The giant robot goes blow for blow with Bill's monsters in an insane battle. While the brawl rages outside, an elite team uses parachutes made from Mabel's sweaters to infiltrate Bill's pyramid. They free Ford and discover they need to form a magical circle, a Captain Planet-style summoning, to banish the villain. It would have worked if Stan and Ford didn't start a petty argument over grammar in the middle of the ritual. Their egos break the circle, and Bill captures them both. Bill threatens to kill the kids, so Ford agrees to let the triangle into his mind in exchange for their lives. But then comes an Oscar-worthy plot twist. The old men swapped clothes. Bill enters Stan's mind, thinking he's Ford. Inside, Stan reveals the trap and sets his own mind on fire to erase Bill from existence, sacrificing all his memories in the process. The villain is deleted with one satisfying punch. When everything returns to normal, Stan has a blue screen for a brain, remembering no one. But, through the power of Mabel's scrapbook, they back up his memories, and Grunkle Stan returns to his old self. In the end, Stan and Ford set off on a seafaring adventure. Zeus becomes the new Mr. Mystery, and the twins celebrate their 13th birthday. Dipper and Mabel board the bus back to California, ending the craziest summer in history. If you didn't cry reading Wendy's goodbye letter, you're already dead inside.